You're listening to the Trading Bear Podcast. This is episode 17, The Daily Show.
Mystery player. Position.
Forward.
Start price.
£3.46.
Current price.
£4.72.
PB.
16p.
MB.
13p.
Dividend yield.
6.1%.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining again. In the news today, Real Madrid agreed to buy Eder Militao, the central defender from Porto, for $43 million. The 21-year-old has signed a 6-year contract and becomes Zinedine Zidane's first signing. Declan Rice receives his first call-up for the England squad, with Callum Hudson-Odoi joining the England under-21s. And Ronaldo and Messi continue to defy the laws of football with game-deciding Champions League performances yet again. So as always, the Champions League has a huge bearing on prices. Let's get into today's risers and fallers. And today's first riser is Virgil van Dijk, the Liverpool centre-back, and he's gone up 32p to a current price of £5.20. He scored the second goal in Liverpool's great 3-1 away win to Bayern Munich, and that was his fourth goal this season, and that amount tallies up to his average in a season. So he scored over 4 to 5 goals a season, and he had one particular great season for Celtic in 2014-15 where he racked up 10 goals, partly due to free kicks that year. Van Dijk is now currently the second highest defender on the game after Joshua Kimmich, and rightly so in my opinion. He's got a great PB baseline score of 124, his yield is just over 10% currently, and he sits 13 in the MB ranks in terms of total amount of points amassed for MB over the year. Van Dijk's MB appeal derives from the fact he is seemingly Liverpool's mouthpiece, and as long as Liverpool are challenging for either the Champions League or the title, I expect him to feature heavily on the back pages as the season draws to an end. Of course, the Champions League were not the only matches taking place last night. We also had the latest round of the Championship matches, and those teams looking to make it up into the EPL for next season. One of those teams is Norwich City, and their 22-year-old Argentinian playmaker is today's second riser. His name is Emi Buendia, and I briefly spoke about him a few episodes ago in the Championship Players to Watch Out For episode. And since that episode, just over a week ago, he's gone on to score 3 goals and assist 4 more. He must have been listening to this podcast. His price currently sits at £2.05 after an 18p rise last night. And for those unaware, he's a short, combative playmaker who has great skill on the ball, and this was summed up by last night's goal. If you haven't seen it, get yourself onto YouTube, Google Emi Buendia goal versus Hull, and the flick leading up to the goal was sublime. He certainly looks the real deal, and it'll be great to see him in the Premier League next year, hopefully with Norwich. So while Virgil van Dijk and Sadio Mane were leading the risers list today, their opposition Bayern Munich were providing the fallers. The likes of Sergio Gnabry, Thiago and James Rodriguez all fell, but the biggest one was the man up top, Robert Lewandowski. His price fell 30p, taking his price down to £2.71. So the obvious reason for his price dropping was Bayern falling out of the Champions League, courtesy of that Liverpool defeat last night. But he's also at that age, at 30 years of age, where he becomes a lot less appealing to traders. His PB is very low, he has no MB appeal, and so his current price of £2.71 is a very low, sensible price for him, I think. He is, however, one of the world's best goal scorers. He's got a superb record at Bayern. In fact, he scored 123 goals in 150 appearances, averaging just shy of a goal a game throughout the season. And indeed, he's got 17 in 24 this season. So numbers slightly down in the 18-19 campaign, but that might also be partly due to Bayern Munich's poor start earlier this year. He's still very much the main man though up top for Bayern Munich, and I expect his price to recover as the season starts next year. For today's second faller, we swap cities from Munich to Barcelona, and it's Messi's young 21-year-old teammate Ousmane Dembele. Dembele's fallen 17p today, and his price now sits at £8.46. He wasn't included in last night's 4-1 victory over Lyon, with Philippe Coutinho taking his place, and the reason for that was due to an injury, and it's since been confirmed today that he has a hamstring injury and he will be out for 3 to 4 weeks. This means he will certainly miss the first leg of the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and he could well miss the second as well, depending on his recovery. As to who Barcelona will play in those quarterfinals, we will find out tomorrow. The Champions League quarterfinal, and indeed the semi-finals, is due to take place at 11 a.m. on Friday, the 15th of March. That's 11 a.m. UK time. So crucially, we will know the path for all European teams all the way to the final ahead of the share split news on Monday. No easy draws then at this stage of the competition, but expect to see prices rise whoever draws Porto out of the hat as the seemingly weakest team left in. So that's today's risers and fallers. Let's head into some of your questions now then. And today's first question comes from Steve Roberts on Index Gain. Steve's a new trader, 9 days in, and he asks, can you advise what to do when a player is massively sold off and his price drops? For example, Ward-Prowse at Southampton. Do you hold? Or accept the loss and sell your shares and move on? A good question, Steve, to which there's no 100% right answer to give you. A lot of it comes down to experience, and of course to gain that experience you have to make mistakes in the first place. There's so many factors to decide when to sell a player, it really is tricky to give an overall strategy as to what to do. But there are two main things that I'll talk about now which you can use in the future. The first being, did you have access to the player when he first began to drop? And by access I mean, were you on a computer or were you on your phone at the time? If you happen to be on Football Index when a player first goes down, then great, you can get on there and then, you can minimise your losses and you can get out of the trade quickly. However, it's not always possible to be near a computer when the news first breaks, and if you're anything more than 10-15 minutes late after that event has happened, then I would tend to hang on to that player. Hopefully you bought that player for a reason, and again, always write down your reasons in a spreadsheet, and these reasons hopefully have solid foundations, and with that in mind, yes, a player's price will go down in the short term, but the medium to long term, that player should rise back up again, and you won't lose out too much that way. Traders of all communities are very fickle, often remembering only what happened the last few days or last week, and with a bit of patience, not only can you make money, more importantly, you can also minimise your losses as well. For those that come from a trading background or even a poker background, the virtues of patience will be well known. For those just starting off to trading or new to trading, look to hold a player or two that has actually fallen down rapidly in a short space of time. Hold them for at least 3-4 weeks, see what's happened to their price, and if nothing more, you will learn what happens to that price in that particular player. Always remember, there's no such thing as a perfect trader. Nobody gets every single decision correct. But in order to summarise, Steve, if you're on the player within the first 10-15 minutes, I would sell. If not, just ride it out. Today's second question comes from Joe via email, and he wrote, I think there's Football Index is technically a gambling website. It is geo-blocked. And with this in mind, do you think there are many investors/gamblers based outside the UK on the platform? If so, what do you think the percentage is? Well, let's first start with the facts, Joe, and what we actually know. So there are currently around 300,000 users on Football Index, with the platform currently being open in the UK, Ireland, New Zealand, Canada, and Sweden. Now, briefly looking at my podcast statistics, 3 of those countries, namely the UK, Ireland, and Sweden, make up the top 5 listeners for my podcast. The second one is actually the United States. 4% of the listeners come from the United States, and we've also had downloads from Norway, Turkey, New Zealand, Ghana, Jordan, Israel, and the Philippines. So there's obviously a lot of interest in the product, and by product I mean Football Index, not this podcast, but the large percent, and 81% for my podcast, comes from the United Kingdom. And I would say this is an active reflection on the users of Football Index itself, and hence why we see a slight inflation for English-based players like Mason Greenwood and Paul Pogba and the likes that you mentioned in your email, Joe. Will this pattern continue? It's definitely likely in the short term, but it will be interesting to see as the product looks to expand into Spain and Germany, or indeed other European territories or international countries, as to how this affects, in particularly, the MB appeal of each player. Until that happens though, Joe, I expect the English players to dominate and get this overinflated price. Remember, if you are travelling abroad on holiday or business anytime soon, just be aware that your account may be blocked, so you won't be able to do any active trading. And that's it for this episode. You can download and subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, and Podbean. Head over to the website to send in a question, tradingbearpodcast.com. Alternatively, you can find me on Index Gain or Twitter under the name Trading Bear. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for the Mystery Player.
Mystery player. Position.
Forward.
Start price.
£3.46.
Current price.
£4.72.
PB.
16p.
MB.
13p.
Dividend yield.
6.1%.
Trading bear. Today's mystery player was Sergio Aguero.